I have received a lot of emails and badgering in the lodge, so I'm now relenting and revealing the secret key to understanding the objective of Freemasonry. Freemasonry is not just a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. This is a very Victorian interpretation. It is much more. But you need the key to understand this, because we are dealing with speculative Freemasonry and not operative Freemasonry. As I mentioned in a previous video, the ritual is based on steganography, and to decipher the hidden teaching within the ritual, you need a key. The best keys are those that are hidden in plain sight, because you cannot make the key impossible to find, which would defeat the objective of passing on the secret teachings. Conversely, it would devalue those teachings if you didn't have to labor to find the key. That is why I am opposed to giving away all 24 signposts that unravel the hidden teachings of Freemasonry. Freemasonry is meant to be a journey of discovery, and that is its allure. But let's fast forward and move on. The key is, and the wording may be different for different constitutions, so I just define it here. I'm using the official cipher of the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts of 1980. The key is: the 47th problem of Euclid was an invention of our ancient friend and brother, the great Pythagoras, who, through his travels through Asia, Africa, and Europe, was initiated into several orders of priesthood and is said to have been raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason. This wise philosopher enriched his mind abundantly in a general knowledge of things, more especially in geometry or masonry. On this subject, he drew out many problems and theorems. Among the most distinguished, he erected this, when, in the joy of his heart, he exclaimed, "Eureka," signifying in the Grecian language, "I have found it." That is the key. So, in this paragraph, there are a couple of things that should jump out at the reader. First, how could Pythagoras be made a Freemason when he lived around 500 BC? This story comes from the introduction to Anderson's Constitutions of 1723, the so-called Legend of Freemasonry, and has no basis in fact. But more importantly, every schoolboy knows that it was it was Archimedes that cried out, "Eureka," not Pythagoras. The story goes that King Hiero of Syracuse had given a bar of gold to a goldsmith to make a crown. When the crown was delivered, the king thought that the workman had kept some of the gold for himself and substituted the gold with silver. Hiero asked Archimedes to ascertain how much gold there was actually in the crown without melting it down. Archimedes, after some thought, realized that he could measure the density of the gold in an irregular object by the amount of water it displaced. And the story that all schoolboys know is that he discovered this when he stepped into the bath and realized displacement of water. So he had discovered a way to differentiate between density and weight. So what makes this the key, and how do we use it? This has to be the key, because it would be unthinkable for nobility and gentry in the 18th century not to note this apparent mistake. They all had classical educations, which included the study of Latin and Greek. So this apparent mistake has been left in the ritual since 1720 23 or so, and it's there to point to something else. I spent a lot of time chasing this rabbit down several holes, looking into Pythagoras' travels in Asia and Egypt. And by the way, Asia in the 18th century meant the Levant, that area between Turkey and Palestine, including Phrygia. I also looked at the importance of Archimedes in the 17th and 18th centuries, among other clues. But after a few years, I realized that the apparent mistake was to show that there was other information hidden in the text that could also be used as a key word. These keywords I refer to as signposts. This also explains why the Pythagorean theorem, you can't see it, it's there, is often used as a badge by Masons. So now we know that there is something to look for. Suddenly small things have a greater import. In later videos, I'll be introducing a few of them to whet your appetite. But the bottom line has to be that Freemasonry is about self-education, using the ritual and the Bible as your guide. The story becomes very interesting when you see the whole picture. Many brothers leave the craft because either they felt that they were learning nothing, or they leave out of boredom of repetition. I hope these videos will help stimulate the sense of adventure that the first three Grandmasters, Anthony Sayre, George Payne, and John de Sagulier, wove into the ritual for you to find. Thank you.